What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Johnny Talks episode 4. This episode marks halfway through our first season, and I'm just so encouraged by all the really positive messages and comments I've been receiving. So just appreciate that. Appreciate you for tuning in. If you missed last week, we had my wife on, Cass Spinelli. Super vulnerable conversation, super cool conversation, kind of revolving social media, how to build a following, how to post, before you have a following, once you have a following, how to monetize that. We kind of talked about motherhood a little bit. Got a lot of really positive feedback on that episode. And it was just really cool to see, how many people do care about her and care about her life and want to hear what she has to say. So just really appreciate you guys tuning in for that one. If you did miss it, go ahead and check it out because it was a great episode. But yeah, I just want to thank her again for coming on. It was a super fun episode. Always love, doing content with her, and we'll definitely have her back on soon. I already have people asking for more Cass episodes, of course, because she is the best. So we'll definitely have her on soon again. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you are subscribed. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. We're about halfway there right now. So any help is much appreciated. Leave a like, leave a comment, let us know. Any feedback is much appreciated. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, a review is always helpful. Make sure you're subscribed as well. It always lets you know when a next episode is posted. But today is a super fun episode. We have my good friend Nathan Blumberg on. Nathan is a sports videographer. He used to work for the MLB, NHL, and NFL, and then branched out on his own. He started doing, more freelance work, and then eventually built his own business, Creative Juice. We kind of talk about how he built his business, things that he's learned since building a business. We talk about what he's learned from professional athletes. He had the loss of his dad in his life, and he was vulnerable enough to talk about that and what he's learned from that process. It was a super fun interview, fun talking to Nathan. He's someone who I look up to in the fact of, he has a passion and he pursues it every single day. And it's just cool to be around people that are just passionate about what they do and are fired up every day they wake up. And that's the kind of people I like to surround myself with. And Nathan's a good friend, and it was a great conversation. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Here it is, Nathan Blumberg. All right, now on Johnny Talks, we are joined by sports videographer, content creator, and lately business owner, Nathan Blumberg.
Appreciate you having me.
Thanks for having me. Or thanks, sir.
Yeah, great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the phone. So first off, before any questions, I just want to speak highly of you for a second and brag on you a little bit. We've known each other for a little over 2 years now. So I think January of 23. So kind of up on a year and a half. And when we first met, you were working a gig with the MLB, the NFL, and the NHL, shooting mainly the professional sports games here in Tampa.
Yep.
To this point, in the last 2 years, you went off and freelanced on your own, and lately have built a business where you're working with professional athletes and these big brands. And it's just been super cool to be kind of right there seeing you take those steps and trusting yourself, but also succeeding. And so just want to brag on you for a second, just say it's been really cool to watch you succeed and take a step out of the boat, because you could have been very comfortable where you were at and you wanted more. And it's been really cool to see you achieve the dreams that you've been wanting to do. And we're just getting started, so it's been cool to see.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, you've obviously been there for a lot of it, so it's been nerve-wracking at some points, but with the community like we have around us, like, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So just grateful to have you guys around and kind of pushing me there too.
No, and it's I can see Creative Juice. You're wearing the
Yeah.
this is a little bit right now.
Yeah.
Creative Juice to the moon. I think we have.
That's the plan.
There's a lot of things that you can achieve, and I think you're just getting started with it for sure. When I think of you and when I think of the things that you're good at, networking is the first kind of word that comes to my mind. I think that's one reason why you've been able to climb the ladder so quickly in the last couple of years that I've known you. Your ability to go up to people you've never met, talk to them, start a relationship with them, and end up working with a lot of them, I think is a really cool attribute that you have. What is it about you that makes yourself a good networker? And explain to me why networking is so important in today's society.
Gosh, I mean, also that's probably like a great compliment just to hear from you, just because like that's one of the attributes in my business that I like pride myself on, is the networking aspect. And I think for me, just I don't think I was a natural extrovert or networker growing up or in school or anything. I had a lot of friends and different friend groups and whatnot, but I think I was just at a point where I wanted it so badly that I was learning to or I was willing to take on new skills and try new things just to get to where I wanted to be.
Right.
And one of those things was networking. And I didn't realize how pivotal it was in my business. But I mean, networking, not only in the videography creative world, but really in any business, will get you so much further than where you're at if you're not willing to network and take those next steps. And then, in a world of technology and social media, when people aren't getting to be face to face a lot, like you have to kind of innovate and find new ways to network. Yeah. So it's very important for today's society.
Is there like a story you can think of where maybe it was a gig with somebody that, only happened because you were willing to, go up to somebody who you could have easily been like, you know what, like, I'm good with where I'm at. Is there something you like the first thing that comes to your head?
So first off, I would say probably like 80% of my business and clients today are from networking. Like, it's not just because I'm not cold emailing people or doing all these weird like outreach tactics to network, but it's just like I've met somebody, created a relationship with them, and whether we work together that week or not, or I've had relationships where with Baker Mayfield's agent,
Right.
I connected with him as soon as he signed to Tampa. I did no work for Baker until I think 13 months later.
Right.
And it was just because every month I'd check in with the agent, see how things were going. And so that was one where it was like, if I wouldn't have taken the time to, do my research, find his agent, network, and keep the relationship for 13 months, I probably would have never met or worked with Baker.
So not only is it you being, showing the initiative to reach out, but also not being discouraged when you didn't get, the gig first time around.
Exactly.
First month, second month, third month, you kept pursuing that. I think that's really important. It's very common in today's society where the first time we don't achieve something, we're on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's also another trait is that, you see someone or you see a gig that you want, you're constantly attacking that.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, especially with networking too.
100%.
People aren't necessarily going to, when they meet you for the first time, be like, that's the person I want to do this gig right away. You have to build a relationship and show trust. And so they're not willing, especially when you have high profile clients like that, they're not going to just, oh, this guy is saying that he's a videographer, I'm going to give him this. You have to prove that you're worth
Exactly.
done. And so,
Yeah. And like just with these, professional athletes or organizations, like a lot of the times, if they're that good at their job, they have the network and they have a videographer, they have an agency that they already work with. So then it's like, okay, I'm not just going to go in, balls to the wall and try to steal a client or tell them that I'm the best and that they should work with me. It's like, no, I'm just going to develop a relationship. And if work comes from it, sick. But a lot of times, if no work comes from it, I've been such a good relationship or business friend that they'll likely recommend me to somebody who's looking for something. Yeah. So it pays its dues for sure.
100%. So again, like I said, when we first met, when I first met you and you told me your job, I was like, that's like the coolest thing. You're at every Rays game, at every Bucks game, at every Lightning game, filming those sporting events. How did you land those jobs? And yeah, how did you get there?
Yeah. So the first ever job that I had in the sports creative world was working for a quarterback trainer in Jacksonville, Florida. His name's Denny Thompson. I forgot what the business is called now. They recently transitioned, but it was 6 Points when I was there. And at the time, they were training Carson Beck, Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, a bunch of other guys. And now they actually train. They train Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, a couple other guys. I think Josh Allen's a new guy with them. But anyways, that was my first ever job. Was working as a videographer, photographer, graphic designer, social media manager. That did that for a whole year. Started to learn the whole networking thing in that business and just tried to meet as many, professional videographers as I could. And then I developed a relationship with who I thought was just a normal videographer in New York. He was shooting Yankees games and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, this is like, where I want to get to one day. I, would love to have a convo with you. So we kept in touch for the next 3 months. And then come to find out that he was my future boss in the MLB. So long story short, during that time of networking, I was applying for jobs. And then I got a interview for the MLB. And then when I signed on to the interview on Zoom, he was the guy interviewing me. I had no idea he was the boss.
Oh, really?
No, I just thought he was a cool videographer in New York. And so that felt like it made it a easy yes and like, come join the team. So that was Lucas. We'll always be forever grateful for him. But then, so that led me to MLB in 2021. My wife and I, Lena, moved down to St. Petersburg, did that gig for a year, maybe a year and a half. And then one of my colleagues in MLB transitioned to the NFL. She became a manager in the NFL and she brought me onto the NFL in 2022, I believe. It was Tom Brady's last season, whichever year that was. I believe it was 2022. And then during that time as well, I forgot how it all happened, but I'm pretty sure one of my colleagues in the MLB referred me to an NHL job. They were all the same, like pretty much scope of work,
Yeah.
same job title, just different league.
Right.
But the NFL and the NHL happened. I believe I was hired on within a month of each other. So that was wild. But that's how I got those jobs. Just networked a lot and, tried to build my portfolio, at the beginning with that quarterback trainer.
So I think that those 3 gigs, put together in one job, I think that would be a lot of people's end goal and maybe dream job. Some people would be pretty satisfied working for a professional sports league, especially 3 of them. You have a steady paycheck, steady schedule. However, you knew you wanted more and you wanted more out of your career. What was that in you that made you want to start freelancing? And how did that develop into your eventual business, which was Creative Juice? Because when you first left shooting professional sports full time, it was more of a freelancing gig
Yeah.
that turned into you starting your own business.
Yeah. I mean, at first it was an interesting convo that I had with a good friend of mine. And it was just me telling him about these dreams and aspirations that I had, but I didn't know if it was dumb to leave these, seasonal part-time jobs with the leagues to just, try to like pursue this dream of freelance in a company and, what it could be or what it could not be. And at the end of the day, I obviously chose to leave all the other, jobs behind to pursue this. But another point of it was there wasn't a lot of creative freedom in those jobs. So it was pretty straightforward. It was like in all 3 of those jobs with the leagues, it was get the shot, send the shot. There's no editing. There's no creative freedom on the shot. It's pretty straightforward of what you're trying to get. You're either trying to get a touchdown or you're trying to get a home run. There's not really a lot of storytelling that goes into it. And I wanted to, tell the stories of athletes or whoever, professional organizations that are affiliated with sports or, brands that are affiliated with sports. I just wanted to be in control of the product that I was putting out instead of just kind of being, not that my past coworkers were pawns on the chessboard, but I wanted to create what I wanted to create, bring on who I wanted to bring on, work with whoever I wanted to work with, and let it all fall on me.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what pushed me to leaving those jobs and trying to set off on my own journey.
I feel like that's a very common thing in the workplace. There's people that, have a steady paycheck, have a steady job, but maybe have different career aspirations they want to pursue. But it can be so scary to leave those moments and positions of being comfortable, right?
Yeah.
It's very hard to step out of your comfort zone, especially when at this point you're married, you're part of, it's part of your job to provide for your family, and you were going from something that is steady and it's going to be there to every month. I mean, stepping into freelancing, you really had no idea how that was going to go. Was that a scary decision for you? And how did that process go of kind of, you almost bet on yourself in a way?
Yeah, I had to if I wanted to get to the dreams that I wanted to chase. But it was an interesting whirlwind of conversations with my wife. She's definitely the more, I don't know how to put it, like safe one. And then I'm the more take risks and dreamer, and she kind of balances me out in that way.
Right.
And so, I was really confident that with all the networking I had done and all the connections I had made in the leagues, that I was going to be okay when I left. I was going to, try to take those contacts, work with them, and then start from there. And needless to say, I think my last day with MLB was in October, I think October 4th. Um, I had a great first month of, full-time freelance. Thought everything was good. And then January of 2024 through April was, I think in those 3 months, I made what I did in October in my first month of freelance, which is, as you can imagine, not that great. And so then doubt creeps in. Um, you know, I can always, just go back to the comfortable spot. Maybe I can get my jobs back.
Right.
My wife is, super anxious, day to day just because of what I'm doing and the decisions that I'm making. I even applied for a job at a tennis pro shop.
Really?
Yeah, to just like make some side money. It's just
Yeah.
not a lot of people knew that one, but I applied for a job at a tennis pro shop because I played tennis in college for a year, and I was like, this is literally the easiest job in the world. I know I'll get it, and I got rejected
Really?
from a tennis pro shop, which blew my mind. I was like, okay, maybe this just isn't meant to be. But then after that, January through March or April, things clicked and it just kind of took off, and haven't really looked back since.
Do you think that that struggle in the beginning, and I don't want to call it failure, but
Yeah.
maybe a type of failure, do you think that pushed you and made you like a better, better videographer, better editor, better, creative person? Do you think that that failure kind of set you up for the success that was to come?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think it made me, the only skill set that I think it made me better at was the networking. And then also kind of like the pre-planning side of things for the rest of the year,
Right.
because I had never really experienced 3 months of just like barely anything.
Right.
Like, sometimes a month goes up, a month goes down. Never like a whole quarter.
Right.
That was tough.
Yeah.
But then it also made me lean into like faith more, because I was like, I'm just trying to put all this on me. Like I need to have, go back to the support of this whole thing and like how I'm even here in the first place. I had like a come to Jesus moment in Vegas. That was one of like my first freelance gigs, was with Antoine Winfield. He was Walter Payton nominee. So flew out to Vegas with him. And I was in my own hotel room in Vegas in a high rise. I was just looking out the window, and I had like no money in the bank account, but I was in Vegas, and I was like, this would never happen. Like if it wasn't for God and like the doors He's opened for me, and like if I hadn't made the jump from freelance to, you know, these things, like it's just that kind of made me lean into my faith a little more too.
Yeah. I had conversations, so far throughout this podcast with different people, and it's crazy how many times we can think back to like the small moments or the small decisions that were tough at the time, or maybe we didn't want to hear that from a certain person, or maybe we didn't want to make that decision, but we made it. And you're looking back on your life and you go, there's no way I would have made it to this point
Mhm.
if this hadn't happened. And so sometimes we're in that mess and we're in that pain. It's very hard to see the big picture, but that's where so much wisdom comes in. The more you live life and the more you push through, is you can take a look back at that lifespan. You go, now I see it.
Mhm.
Now I see why this happened. Now I can see I made that tough decision, and I can see where that led. And I think that's what's so important for younger people to hear, is it's very hard to understand why certain things are happening right now. But the most important thing is to surround yourself with good people, surround yourself with people that are going to push you and make decisions that ultimately are going to put you in the space to succeed, even if you don't succeed right away, because it's very, very rare that you're going to be put in a space doing something different for the first time and you're going to succeed. Like that's a very rare thing.
Yeah. No, I think it's almost a disadvantage if it does work well the first time, or
100%.
the first time you do something and it does go the right way. I feel like that's almost a disadvantage. So
I completely agree, because in a way it kind of takes that, you need a little bit of fear, of failure, to kind of always be in the back of your head. You don't want it to control you, but you need it right there. Just mean like, I know what that failure looks like. I know what not making money for 4 months feels like. I need to continue.
Yeah.
Grinding.
it was funny because Creative Juice just recently dropped its first film with Pete Alonso, and somebody texted me after they watched it, and they gave me a quote from it that I really just kind of like passed by as we were editing it. But it was Pete Alonso, and he said, He always welcomes failure, but he never accepts it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that that's just a point to kind of piggyback off what you were saying of like, that's just something that, we can apply to our journeys and, to keep going forward.
100%. So moving on, one important thing that I think that you did when you started Creative Juice is early on you brought on a business partner, someone to help with, everything creatively, business wise, someone to help share the workload and help create a brand that people would be aware of. I think it's very common when an individual starts something to think that we can shoulder all the workload ourselves, 100% of the workload on us. Why did you choose to bring in a partner, and why you think it's important to build a team around you instead of trying to do everything individually?
I think it was all goal oriented of like realizing my dream for the agency of like what I wanted it to be and how realistic was it for me to shoulder everything to get to that point. So my business partner Kyle, I think he just turned 30, but he's been in the creative space a lot longer than I have. He has done everything from, e-commerce marketing to, all the things that have to go in with marketing and strategy, but then also the creative production side. He's a like business logistical wizard, which I'm not.
Right.
He is like through and through amazing in a lot of these components. But getting him on Creative Juice was very important. I didn't know at the time how crucial it was, because I think I launched Creative Juice officially in January, and then I didn't bring Kyle on until, June or July of 2024. And it's changed everything.
Yeah.
We're on a consistent path trending upwards. And then just the skill sets of that both he and I have balance each other out really well. I think if I would have tried to bring on somebody with the same skill set, just, like there's, two of me working, I don't think it would have, trended upwards as well. And so I think that's also really important is to make sure like you find somebody that covers your weaknesses. That's also great in other aspects, but like if you can, cover their weaknesses, they got yours, like you guys are going to be really good together.
Yeah. So I think what you said is super important because it's very, especially in today's day and age, we don't want to really talk about our negatives a lot,
Mhm.
our downfalls. We're always talking about what we can do good and our pros. And, we all have those, but we also all have downfalls too. Like it's impossible to be perfect every single aspect, especially of starting a business. For people that think always about, everything they do good or everything, all the pros and never, think about, attributes that maybe they'd be lacking in, that can be a huge issue in being able to find success.
Yeah.
And so you being able to be humble enough and have humility in the fact of, I really don't know what I'm doing as far as the business aspect of this goes. I need to supplement that with someone who does and not be like, no, Creative Juice is mine and it's my idea. I want 100% of the profit. I think that's very common with a lot of people. And we want, me. It's all about me.
Yeah.
You saw the fact that it's like, well, yes, it's mine. Yes, it's something, it's like a passion project of mine. But if I really needed to succeed and I wanted to succeed, you took a step back and you realize you had, humility in the fact of this is where I lack. This is where I struggle. If this is going to succeed, I have to be able to take a step back and let someone take over in that aspect.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
It's a big like ego check. Like, especially in the creative world, like we're always trying to one up one another.
Yeah.
And that's just the natural thing of it. Like somebody comes out with a sick video, we're trying to one up it. And that's just how everybody gets better. So that's healthy, a healthy way to look at it. But yeah, I mean, as far as, creative juice and how I see it in 10, 15 years, like I don't see it going up from here just because of the work that I've done. Like I want to have the best agency,
Yeah.
which entails having the best team, the best editors, the best videographers. Like it's not just me.
Yeah.
I want to hire videographers that are way better than me.
Right.
Like, cause I just want to have the best agency.
And there's something about bringing everyone else up with you.
Mhm.
I like following the business and the business leaders, the entrepreneurs. It's about community. I don't just want to rise myself. I want to bring around a team around me and I want to rise together. I want to pick people up along the way that maybe didn't have that opportunity to start something themselves or maybe, never had just the right person coming in our life. I want to be that for somebody.
Yeah.
And so just like you were talking about the boss that ended up being a huge difference for you,
Mhm.
now you being able to be a difference for other people that you're bringing up along the way, I think is a huge part of life and a super cool part of having a business, knowing a business.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, at the end of your life, it's not just how much money you made or how much your business sold for or
Mhm.
what you were doing. It's how did I impact people?
Yeah.
And so I think if you have the mindset of I'm not good enough on my own, let's bring people around me that's going to build this brand up. I think that's what sets a brand apart and allows it to grow to the
Yeah.
next.
And that's what I'm so excited for, is to like, one day when Kyle and I are having enough revenue that we can bring on full-time, videographers, editors, like I want to have that family community like
Yeah.
aspect. Like I just think that's the coolest thing. Like I really look up to Nick Barron, BPN, like the way he's done it with his company. And like I just want to have that feeling as well.
And the thing that's cool about, being able to live in America and just have the opportunities we have is that's obtainable.
Yeah.
Every business has started from the ground up. It's something that I really like to hear, and it just encouraging every time. It's like every person that's big on social media started an account with 0 followers. Like everybody that, is a professional athlete hit a ball for the first time. It's like everything is brought from the ground up.
Mhm.
And so there's really nothing stopping you from being able to build that. And I think
Yeah.
that's what's cool.
Yeah. That is a super cool aspect.
So another thing I think you do really well is use social media to grow your business, whether it be your personal like profile as far as sports videography and now creative juice. I think when people think of social media and making money off it, they only think of influencers. And I think brands are starting to pick it up a little bit, but you can make and build up such a good brand by using social media. You can
Yeah.
build a business, you can build a brand. Why did you choose to use social media in that way?
Mhm.
And what are some tips for other content creators to be able to grow their platforms on
Yeah.
social media?
It's interesting because the way I looked at it at first was I was trying to be like an influencer that just had a camera.
Right.
Like I did look at it from that perspective. And then I just realized like no one cares about like Nathan Blumberg as an influencer. Like they might care about, the work he does on the field or with these athletes, or there's so many different aspects of who Nathan Blumberg is that like people want to tune into. And but then it also makes it a point for these athletes and these businesses to see who is behind Creative Juice, who is behind Bloomberg Film, to buy in a little bit more.
Right.
Like when I'm creating these relationships with people, like, oh, they can just kind of see what I'm doing on a day to day, who I'm working with on a day to day, build that trust factor a little more.
Yeah.
But I think it's super important for people to buy into social media. I think it's very silly in the year 2025 if you haven't bought into social media, at least in, some way, shape, or form. It can be all the difference in your business. And like, I hear a lot of people are like, I see these reels or TikToks. It's like, oh, I made like 200,000 off of Instagram or whatever. And it's like, technically, I've gotten paid like what, $50 from Meta,
Right.
but it's like probably 80% of my work is from DMs or exactly. So, I can account for a lot of my revenue from social media. So, just because you don't receive checks from Meta or whoever, that doesn't mean you're not making connections and making money from your social medias. So I think it's huge.
100%. Would you say, so this was something that I talked to my wife about, obviously in the social media industry last week. And she says this a lot when people are like, how do I grow a following? There's so many people that want the following,
Mhm.
but don't post like they already have the following. You know what I'm saying? So if someone wants to be a sports videographer and post that kind of content, but they have no followers, and so they don't post that content because they're like, who's going to see it?
Mhm.
You have to be able to, in my opinion, post that content that is good enough
Mhm.
to grow a following before you can have a following.
Yeah.
Is that something that you maybe did in the beginning where, everyone starts an account from the ground up? You were like, no, I'm going to post clips that are going to like hit the For You
Yeah.
page. I'm going to post clips that are going to hit the Explore page. And people are going to click on my account and be like, why is this guy only have 100 followers?
Yeah.
And then you follow. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you're not posting that type of content that's going to be good enough and well shot enough and well edited enough and everything that goes into that, if you're not putting that in that effort, even though you have no followers and there's no guaranteed views, you're never gonna get that.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like I'll get, DMs of of young videographers, or even videographers who are older than me that are, should be more established than I am. And they're like, man, like I'm just not getting enough work, or I'm not getting clients, I'm not getting followers and this and that. I go on their profile, they have like 6 posts, and I'm like, dude, because you don't have any work to show for it. Like people will click on your profile, see that they can't even scroll, go out there, like you're done, you're gone.
People to find it.
Exactly. It's like your first impression is your social media. And I just think that it's something people don't think of enough, but it's something people are on every day.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, how are you not using this tool?
Especially in your business, because it's essentially a resume.
Yeah.
People
Your
need,
portfolio.
they go, I need this shot. I want this documentary.
Yep.
I want this event covered. Okay, then you may have gotten word of mouth to this person.
Mhm.
I'm gonna look them up on social media. They don't have anything.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to trust the word of mouth?
Exactly.
When then you're just scrolling Instagram and be like, what? That was a really well shot video.
Yeah.
That was super high quality. That editing was sharp.
Yeah.
You click that profile, message them. It's how so many leads come to. And it's crazy how many people downplay what's
Exactly. And it's cool too, because in a way, at least for the creative world, it kind of is a double-edged sword. You want to post, at least this is the way I thought of it. I wanted to post all my highlights. I wanted to post the best videos and photos that I took, so that my Instagram is my portfolio, so that if, somebody comes on the page, they see all the good work. But then it also works in favor of, if I'm posting the best highlights and the best videos, photos, like maybe one of those will crack 1 million views. And then that just, it's just a chain reaction that happens. And that's just the way I looked at it. And it's been working out well.
Yeah.
I'm still nowhere near, viral every post or Instagram famous, but it's grown my business and helped me get to where I'm at today. So, I mean, social media has been a huge key.
100%. So I do want to talk more about Creative Juice as a business and kind of where it's going and a little more about how it got started. But I do want to talk, kind of jump back, how you got into sports videography in the first place.
Yeah.
So kind of, where did you pick up a camera? How did that start?
So, grew up huge sports fanatic. Baseball, college football, and tennis were like my favorites to watch. Didn't really play football, but played baseball and tennis growing up. And then when Vine came around, I believe that was, gosh, I can't even remember when that was. I don't know if it was like middle school or freshman year of high school. I can't remember where it was.
Maybe like early 2010s.
Yes, somewhere in there. I think it was middle school for me. But there would be these videos of, these accounts. They were sports accounts, and they would have like, Derek Jeter highlights or whoever, and they would have like crazy music and effects and all this stuff. So I thought that was really cool, and that was my first kind of, taste of, you can do stuff with video and sports, like put it together, like, it was crazy. And so I just started ripping YouTube videos off the internet and putting neat, cool beat drops and changing colors and whatnot.
Like middle school.
Middle school.
What do you edit on, like Windows? Like,
Dude, I don't even, I think I was doing it all in the Vine app.
oh, okay.
Like I had no skills. It was literally just in the Vine app. That's all I had. And then fast forward to high school, VSCO comes out, VSCO comes out. And then in my hometown, that was like a really big app. And one of my really good friends to this day, Joey, he's a sick photographer in New York now. He got VSCO and was doing all these cool edits. And we had a really big friend group, and he was like the photographer of the friend group. And I didn't want to like copy him. And so he was like, dude, just like do video and like pick up a camera. And I was like, all right, cool. So freshman or sophomore year, picked up a camera for the first time. It was my mom's Nikon. Couldn't tell you what model it was. But it had a record button. And so I just pressed record and didn't do any settings, literally just pressed record. And then we started, just filming our hangouts, making like summer recap videos. And then that kind of transitioned into college.
Dude, that like a summer recap video that just like hit like the memory. Like I loved watching those things, especially like older kids too.
Yeah.
When they're like going to cool like rock jumping places.
Yeah, like Jay Alvarez and all those guys. Like that's who I looked up to. And we lived on an island, and that's who like
Basically started Outer Banks.
that's what, yeah, that's us. But that's who we were trying to be, is like these Jay Alvarez and Alexis Ren and all these like crazy Instagram travel influencers. Like that's who we were trying to be. And so that's what ultimately got a camera in my hand and Joey's hand. He was actually trying to be Jay Alvarez. And then fast forward, we, continued that hobby through high school. Senior year, I picked up, I believe it was my first camera that I got from my mom and my dad. My parents were divorced. And so my dad got the camera body and my mom bought me the lens and the bag. So I got it like 2 separate Christmases. And then I started shooting basketball games for the high school just for fun. All my boys played for the football and basketball team, so I'd shoot those games. And then that's when I found out that you could like do photos and video for sports.
Yeah,
And
like as a career.
as a career.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it really kicked into gear. So
So fast forward into college, you end up going to play tennis in college. Was that something that you like as far as sports videography? Was that something where you just kind of considered it a hobby at the time, or were you like, no, I'm going to go to school for tennis, and then after maybe I'll pursue it?
So videography was just like on the side.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, sports videography wasn't even a thought at the time. I was going to school to play tennis. I wanted to play 2 years at this junior college, get my grades up because I was just awful in high school. Get my grades up in JUCO, and then transfer to a D1 or D2 and finish out my career, get a business degree, and then figure out what to do from there. Sports videography was never in the cards as far as a career.
Okay. So your dream was to, have a D1 tennis career, eventually business career, maybe start a business or work somewhere high up after that. After a year, you were out of tennis and out of college. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So kind of explain to me that process.
Yeah. So first semester of college, it was a complete culture shock for me. I was the only American on my team. And so we were just having fun as a tennis team, like partying a little too much, and just, I was worried more about the networking side of things with my friends and networking and socializing and whatnot. And so my grades dipped. So I wasn't eligible to play in the spring of my freshman year of college. So I played tennis in the fall semester, played a couple of tournaments with the team. And then I had made the team, there's only 6 spots that play. I made number 6 for spring season, and then all of a sudden my grades dip. I wasn't eligible. And then January 21st, my dad passed away. I got a call completely out of the blue. Ironically enough, he was playing tennis when he passed. And so that happening, and then my grades dipping, obviously that one was on me. But just those 2 things happening, finding out I'm ineligible, and then losing a parent at the same time just completely wrecked me. I've never been one to say that I'm depressed or like use those words, just because I feel like those are really big and like serious terms that I don't think I've ever dealt with. But I will say in that, spring semester, I definitely dealt with that. Just living on my own. I had a teammate, but no family around. I was pretty isolated, just not traveling for the tournaments. So that kind of set that trajectory down for the rest of the school year. So ultimately left college, finished out the semester, went back home for the summer. Was going through that grieving process and whatnot. I also had met my now wife, Lena, so that was a big plus. But we were trying to figure out, my dad was helping pay for school. So, if we were going to go back to school, if we were going to, finish out my eligibility for tennis, because I was getting my grades back up in that summer. And then ultimately, my mom and I chose to take that fall semester off of school, kind of grieve. I still wasn't really in the right, headspace for anything. So I took that semester off. I did a couple classes online just in case I was to go back to school. And then during that, August to December, I was a pool boy at the Ritz-Carlton. I worked at a bagel shop. I worked at a doggy daycare place. I feel like I had a third job, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I was working at least those 3 jobs. No, like, really big career in mind, just kind of like going through the motions. I was doing real estate, videography and photography for my mom. And then yeah, that's pretty much how I got out of college. And so anyways, we get to December and I was planning on going back to school. I wanted to finish my college eligibility. I wanted to play tennis. I was dating my wife now. We started dating, so I wanted to go back to school, be with her, see my teammates, do the whole thing. And she she basically told me that if I went, that I would have to pay for school, like all on my own. And I was obviously not prepared to do that. So I was like, okay, sick. I gotta stay home. But it was actually because my mom believed in my vision and my videography that she wanted me to just go for it.
Yeah.
Like she wanted me to quit jacking around in college and like, yes, Lena was there, but she was like, "You're not going pro in tennis."
Yeah.
So, she was like, "I really want you to pursue your dream and like just go." She was like, "You can live at the house until you're supposed to be out of college, and then I'll kick you out." But she was like, "You got until you're 21 or 22 years old, and then you're on your own." But she was like, "Until then, you can live here, no overhead bills, like figure it out, and then you're on your way." So my mom, credit to her, she, like they say, like mama knows best. Like she knew when I had no belief in myself.
Yeah.
So that was a long story, but that's pretty much my college to, the end of that season of my life.
It's a crazy testimony because I just can't imagine like where you were at mentally in that space.
I don't know where I was at mentally. Yeah, I couldn't pinpoint it.
Because losing a parent as, a teenager, that it should never happen. And it's not something you're expecting to happen, especially being Southern. Um, and I hate to say like it, led to this or led to that, but it's just how life works where, does happen. But it did lead to you on this path where
Just life. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
and so obviously you would want your dad to be here in a second.
Yeah.
But it is crazy to see how, God uses terrible things that happen in our life. And he works them for his good for those that believe in him and trust in him. And so it's it's a very tough thing to lose a parent at that age, at any age, but especially you're still developing. But it's cool to hear that testimony of someone who stuck through it,
Yeah.
and it led to something
Yeah.
good.
It's
what I'm saying.
it's crazy because like that year, 2021. No, not 2021. 2019. I always say it's the best and worst year of my life because I've always been a Christian,
Yeah.
quote unquote. At that time, I was a quote unquote Christian. Like I believed in God, but then my actions didn't say that I was Christian. Um, and so it sucks, but it took losing my dad and then getting not kicked off the team, but just being ineligible for me to really like dive in and do some soul searching. And so, when I left college that spring semester, that summer is the closest I've ever been to God. And like my relationship and, I was so focused on just getting closer to him that everything else would figure itself out.
Mhm.
And I'm super, I don't know how to explain it, but like, I've always been at peace with my dad passing because he would be so overjoyed with like the job that I have today. Only because like he was the biggest Yankees fan, he was the biggest sports fan that I knew. And so just us sharing that love for sports, like if he could see that I was working next to Aaron Judge or has met Tom Brady, yeah,
You see.
like he would just be, over the moon. And so it's cool to think about like, you know, um that I have a good perspective on it because, ultimately with that event happening in my life, I could have just buried my head, and sulked about it and played the victim card. No idea where I would be if I would have done that, but I chose the other route, leaned in my faith, and then it got me here with an amazing group of friends, a wife, Christ-centered relationship. Like, if it's weird to think about, but like I don't know what my life would have been like if my dad would have lived. And so, I'm at peace with what happened.
Yeah. Not even just if he lived, but if you would have went to college for
Mhm.
4 years in tennis,
Yeah.
like, you could be in some, dead end job that you hated because you never got to keep working on sports videography and you kind of lost that love, you lost that skill, and you graduated college and you're kind of like, "Just let me go get a job,"
Yeah.
and it's just how it goes. And so it's crazy to look back on those moments and think, just how small decisions, big decisions, small life moments, big life moments, it just all leads to where you're at.
That's crazy.
But, I think you've done a good job, and it's always impressive to me how you handle that situation and how you continue to handle that situation. So just commend you on that one.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yep. So that obviously all led down to your career path, and you started with the quarterback camp or the quarterback train to the NFL, MLB, NHL kind of trio to now starting Creative Juice. What's been the hardest thing about going from a stable job with those three professional sports to freelancing and then eventually starting your business? What's been the hardest thing so far about starting your own business?
Poof. I would say that the hardest part for me was my thought process towards starting a business. I thought that it was a simple transaction. It was still freelance. To my knowledge, I thought it was still freelance, just kind of on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. Like, I just get to call myself an agency. I get to like approach these agents and athletes, and I make them videos. They give me money.
Yeah.
No way. It's like, dude, there's so much business analytical logistics that go into, running an agency. From my business partner and I are going through this right now. We're like switching payment processors for invoices, and like our money's freezing because bank accounts don't recognize this stuff. Like, just, I didn't never think I was, yes, S corp, whatever. Like, I never, never would have thought that I would have had to think about invoice processing payments for 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
But it's just, the thought process that I had at first when I was starting a business, I was just like, okay, this is just a piece of cake. Like, I just get to go under another label of an agency instead of a sole proprietor. But like, it's not that. So that's why I'm grateful for Kyle. He is, he's been teaching me so much, and he's great with, not only as a videographer, but just business as a whole.
Yeah.
He really gets it. So I'm, really glad to have him on the team.
What's been the best then?
That I would honestly say the same thing.
Yeah.
Is like just learning these new skills,
That's cool.
becoming a better entrepreneur almost. Like, I feel like I can call myself an entrepreneur now, not just a videographer, cinematographer. Like, I know how to, vaguely run a business, touch all the points that need to be, figured out. And so I just think it's a really cool skill to have, and the networking and everything that goes along with it. But I would honestly say the same thing. It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
The same thing.
No, I like that answer because, you hear someone like David Goggins talk about that you need to do something hard every day. And so when you can conquer the things that are difficult, when you start a business, like, I don't know how to pay ourselves out. I don't know how to set ourselves up for taxes. I don't know how to do all that. When you learn about that stuff, there's a sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
When you finish a year and those numbers line up with the accountant, there's a sense of accomplishment when you can see, oh, we made this month. This was the next month. This was the next month. And that builds like that. It was hard, but there's a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
And you feel so much more than it just kind of, a steady line of being comfortable.
Yeah.
And so, it's sometimes that it's the hard things that feel so good. And it's the bet as far as when you look back on it. Like, I look, I've ran one half marathon, and I want to do more down the road. But I hated every second of it. I hated every second of the training.
Yeah.
I hated every second of the race. Some people, the runners, they love the races. They feel like that runner's high.
The runner's
I
high.
hated
I've never experienced
every
runner's high.
second of it. But when I finished it, I was so proud.
Yeah.
Because I hated every second of it, and I could have easily just not done it. Because that's something, and maybe an old part of me would have done.
Yeah.
Is that I hated something, so I wasn't going to do it. I hated every second of it, but I did it. And that sense of accomplishment felt so good. And so I can imagine when you're running a business and starting a business, when you start to conquer things that you found so difficult at the beginning, it's got to be a good feeling.
It's the same feeling that you just described. Like, through all these trials and tribulations and learning these new skills. But when you see, the athletes and the clientele that you're bringing in and you're working with, like, that's not just a fluke. Like, it's happening because you're putting the work in, you're overcoming these things, you're networking. all these things. So yeah, just like what you said, like it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, 100%. So speaking of athletes, I think that's one of the coolest parts of your job is just who you get to interact with
Mm-hmm.
on the daily, weekly, monthly. So this is your time. You get to name drop a little bit. What are some of the athletes that you worked with to this point?
Okay, so off Creative Juice, this is like, when I was with MLB, NHL, NFL, the coolest people that I got to interact with. It was actually one of my first ever baseball games. I'm a huge Yankees fan at heart. So my dad grew up, being a Yankees fan, so he kind of passed it on to me. So I was a huge Yankees fan. My first series that I ever worked was Blue Jays versus Yankees in Florida because at the time, Blue Jays weren't playing in Toronto because of COVID. So the Yankees come down. I was filming batting practice and I didn't see Giancarlo Stanton or Aaron Judge. And so at the time I was like, okay, maybe they're just not in the lineup today. Whatever, I don't know. And then I was kneeling, facing home plate. Behind me down the third base line come Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge comes and baseball taps me on the butt. He's like, have a good day, bro. And I was like, what? It's like, dude, like, obviously baseball taps on the butts are normal, but like, he didn't have to have that interaction with me because I was just a photographer. Like, I'm not a teammate. I don't have I don't have Yankees gear on. That was one of the coolest moments and people that I've interacted with. But then also, I've gotten to film practically one-on-one with Tom Brady. That's obviously the GOAT of football, one of the biggest names that I've ever worked with. And then as far as creative juice, I've gotten to work with Sauce Gardner. That was, he's not a creative juice client, but it was a one-off shoot. He needed a guy last minute. I stepped in. By the way, he's an amazing golfer. You guys would probably have a great time. That was a really cool one. And then Baker Mayfield, we get to do all of his foundational events. Antoine Winfield, and then Max Clark. So he's
Next up.
yeah, minor league phenom. A lot of great things to say about him as a player, but also as a person. Like he's one of my favorite clients to get to work with, just for the relationship that we built. So
You get to hang out with these guys that, are seen by millions of people doing what they do, but they see them from afar. You get to spend
mhm.
quality time with these guys, person to person, a lot of times one on one. These guys that are the best of the best, and girls too. You do some,
Yeah,
I know you a tennis
yep.
girl is pretty high up there as well. So you're working with these people that are the best of the best at what they do, and you get to see them one on one, not who they are in front of the TV and the cameras and who all that. You can see really who they are as a person, and in terms of like their work ethic as well. Because a lot of times you're filming them when they're training. What are some things that you've learned from these incredible athletes who have just outworked everyone else?
Yeah.
And what are some things you've learned and picked up from them, and how have you applied them to your life?
It's interesting because like there's two things off the top of my head that I've learned about athletes and then from athletes. I've learned about athletes is that they are, at least the ones that I've gotten the pleasure of working with, they are just normal human beings that are just very good at what they do. Like as far as personality goes, like any one of the athletes could be sitting here with us, talking with us, having a conversation, just like we're all boys. Yeah, like they're not super human. They're not untouchable. Like they're normal human beings who, want to be normal like the rest of us,
Treated like normal.
want to be treated normal, but they just happen to be on television every day and be good at the sport. And then the other,
To be genetically blessed.
yeah, a freak of nature. And then another thing that I've learned about athletes is that I feel bad for them to a sense because I've gotten to have really intimate conversations with some athletes about like the pressure and the names that they get called and the letters that they get sent if they don't make this play or that touchdown. Sports bettors are coming after the next. They put their mortgage on somebody scoring a touchdown. They didn't score it. Like all these different things. They're just humans. Like they're playing a game. Obviously, they're set there to perform. They're one of the best in the world. But like it's just I feel for them sometimes with just kind of the way they get treated by people who don't really know what it's like to be on the other side. And so that's something that I never thought that I would learn about the athletes, just because I had never really thought of it.
Yeah.
But those are the two things that I've learned about them, and then the things that I've learned from them are their work ethic. I haven't come across an athlete that we've worked with that isn't that doesn't have an insane work ethic. Like some of them are genetic freaks. Yeah, some of them are normal smojos, but they will outwork anybody in the room with them, and that's what makes them so great. And I was listening to Casey's podcast, and like the things that make Tarek great or whoever, like that is all true. Like their work ethic and like the how much they care about what they're doing and the craft that they do is insane.
Yeah. Because like I was talking about with Casey is like there's in every single sport, there are so many guys who didn't make it that were so talented, that were so physically blessed, that
Hmm.
had the coaching and the money or whatever to make it. At the end of the day, what separates those people, because at the top of the top, the talent level is not a huge disparity.
No.
Like especially in pro golf, like that's obviously a sport that I would know the best as far as,
Hmm.
professional athletes. That talent level from, lower level professional tours to PGA Tour, it's not as much as people would think.
Yeah, like Corn Fair to like PGA, like
There's guys
is that like
go out there and as soon as they can work 6 years to get their Corn Ferry card, and as soon as they get on the PGA Tour, maybe something clicked,
yeah,
and they're scar. I could think of a guy. I shot him at an airport one time. I'd love to get him on the pod. Jake Knapp. He was someone who struggled through, the Canadian Tour, earning status on the Corn Ferry Tour, would lose his Corn Ferry Tour card to the point where it's a story that I'm sure he's tired of hearing right now. He was working security at like a nightclub just to make some money to play in tour events. The dude's top 100 in the world now playing on the PGA Tour. He has, you know, 3 or 4 top 25 finishes this year. He's made a career out of it now. And I'm sure he's gotten, better and stuff over the years, but really it's work ethic and it's sticking to it because everyone's talented at a certain level.
yeah,
And there's just something that the guys who get it done have that, it's hard to see sometimes until you see them up close,
yeah,
like what you've seen.
and like yeah, you have the freaks of nature is like you know Shohei Ohtani, like yeah, he's by far
Yeah.
probably the best player in baseball, but he's an anomaly. Like literally Aaron Judge through all the rest of the guys, Fernando Tatis, whoever you want to call Acuna, like it's not that much difference. Like they're pretty close. Yeah. So yeah, like what you were saying, it's crazy.
So I would bet that there are a lot of kids sitting at home, especially now with social media, that would love to pursue a sports videography career. They just maybe don't know where to start. Let's say they're in high school, they want to start filming stuff like maybe how you did when you were in high school, start filming football, basketball games. Tell me a good starter kit that
Okay.
could help someone that maybe, they're on a budget,
Okay.
not the nicest camera in the world, not the nicest editing software. We're talking,
Yeah.
a basic camera, maybe a basic microphone and a good editing starter software that they can just start to develop their skills. Because I think that's the problem that a lot of people have is when they want to get into something, they feel the need to, get the most expensive thing. Give it something that they can, jump into comfortably and see if it's something that they
Yeah.
deserve.
Yeah. That's a tough thing with videography and
Yeah.
photography. Just like you got to pay to play. Yeah. Like it's tough, but starter kit, just like I had in high school, I bet my lens, camera body, editing probably wasn't even worth over like $300, $400 maybe. And that's very, very low end for cameras. So, if you're trying to get it for like $100, just I don't know what you need to do. But I would say DaVinci Resolve is a pro style editing software. A lot of the pros use it, but there's a free version. And then obviously starting out, you don't need all the bells and whistles. So just go get DaVinci Resolve or iMovie, Final Cut Pro. Those are also good affordable options. And then as far as cameras go, I am a Sony nerd through and through. I wish they would freaking like sign me or like as an ambassador or something. Yeah, I need a code at least. They probably wouldn't even give me 20, it'd be 10. But Sony has some great affordable options. I specifically love Sony because they're a great hybrid camera. They do very well with photo and video. And so there's a Sony line called the A6000 line. And so you can go A6000, A6500, there's a couple different numbers in there. That's a really good starting place. I want to say you can get them used on eBay for under $1,000, which is really good for that line of cameras. And then that's really all you need is it. All those cameras come with a kit lens, so that's baked into the package. And so you should be walking out, with $700. That's my guess. But that's what I would go with, and do all your shopping on eBay because every piece of gear that I own is from eBay, and used gear is great gear. And if it's not in the condition that the seller says it is, then you can send it back and they'll give you your money back. So it's not like Facebook Marketplace where you have to gamble. And
Amazon.
yeah, it's like Amazon. Like if it's not in the condition that it said it is, then you get to send it back and you get your money back. So take the chance on eBay, buy it cheaper, and go from there. So
And stop waiting for someone to ask you to do something, right?
yeah,
Go out and just do it. I think a lot of people are, it's like, maybe I don't know what to film, or I don't have, no one's offering me an opportunity to go. Find a little league field, dude.
Yeah.
Go to a t-ball game and practice following the ball. Like practice, getting that right shot, framing. Practice edit.
Yeah.
Go to your little sister's soccer game and make her a sick edit. You know what I'm saying? Like, stop waiting for someone to present you an opportunity, because in this world, that's not always going to happen. And sometimes you're lucky and you get that. Go do it.
yeah,
And so that's what you did.
Yeah.
No one asked you, hey, can you come film this high school football game? Or
yeah,
I'm sure maybe it would have been a lot more fun to sit in the crowd and then
yeah.
student section, do whatever. But you were like, no, this is something I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
No one's asking me to do it, but I'm going to take initiative and I'm going to start to grow these talents. Too. If you did do that in high school and, you end up where you're at in college or out of college, and then you want to start doing this, you're going to be way behind everybody else.
Yep.
You have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And you can't wait for someone to always ask you to do something before doing it.
Yeah, and I would also say that YouTube University is where I got my degree. Not really, but YouTube is where I've learned everything from.
We need to get you a diploma.
Exactly, just a fake one to hang in my office. But like everything business wise, filming, editing, networking, listening to Gary Vee and Alex Hormozy, everything that I know has been the base from YouTube. And so it's a free resource if you're not watching. Stop doom scrolling and watching brain rot content and actually watch something that's beneficial for you. But then also piggybacking off the point of taking initiative, everybody would be surprised about how much money soccer moms and t-ball moms would pay to have photos of their kids.
Yeah.
If you go up to a game,
Do it.
how many kids are on?
Don't do it in a weird way though.
Don't
Just they start taking photos and be like,
That's true.
It's just $10.
It's 2025. People are
You
weird.
gotta know them, but
That's true. But networking, yes. That is actually hilarious. I didn't even think about that. That could come off as creepy. But how many kids do you want? Yeah, I'll keep it. But I didn't say yeah. How many kids are on a baseball diamond? 22 or no?
Oh no, that's a football field. You mean like on a team? Well, it's like 9 on the field at a time.
9 on the field at a time.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't know that. Okay. Anyways,
I mean 10 if the back.
yeah, whatever. Anyways, if you just add up all those players, go there for one single player, but then maybe the other moms want to pitch in for, you'll have like a couple $100 from one t-ball game that lasts an hour. So people underestimate it.
Yeah,
But,
love those Facebook pages.
yeah, but just talk to the moms before you talk to the kids.
There's always stepping stones. Your first gig doesn't need to be with the NFL.
No.
It can be with.
Mine was not.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people want to get noticed in this field, and with a lot of careers these days, it's a very saturated field, and I think that's kind of what sports videography is and content creation has become too.
Mhm.
What's your best advice for someone who's trying to stick out in the crowd, as someone who's now owning a business and you're going to be eventually adding on people to your crew? What's something that you're going to be looking for and would help them stand out to you as someone who will be employing people here in the future?
I want to know that if I'm hiring you for a creative juice agency, if you're a videographer, editor, or whatever, I want to know that you know how to work the game of social media. So whether it's, I don't want to see you just copying trends word for word, shot for shot, just to get the views. Like what I do personally is I look at the trends and I see what's popping, and then I tweak it, change the shots, change the wording to fit who I am as a person and my style. So yes, it is like the base of it, it is the same idea. But if you were to look at it from two different phones and you would not know that they were kind of related somehow.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I play the game of social media is, doing those steps and looking at what's popping on the Reels or TikTok or whatnot. So if I can see, I want to bring on A players.
Yeah.
And even above A, like I don't even think I'm an A player. I think these A players are going to know what's hitting on social media, what's important, how to get people to stop. That's a huge thing. Our attention spans are completely out of whack. And so if you can get somebody to stop and watch your video, that's a plus. I just think they're going to know the game of social media very well. And if they're in the sports world, that's great. But I think they're just going to know the game of social media.
It's crazy how often it comes out of social media.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a little sad in the way, but just because of how many negatives can come with social media.
Yes.
But there are so many positive too, and it's the future. So if you don't hop on now, you're gonna get left.
I would love a flip phone sometimes, but it's just not
just
the
not-
cards that were dealt. So yeah.
So recently, you guys made your first documentary.
Mhm.
We're gonna close here.
Mhm.
You made one with Pete Alonso, former MLB Rookie of the Year, like 4-time All-Star. Kind of tell me about how that started and why you decided to make a documentary, and tell me about this one and maybe what it looks like in the future.
Yeah, so long story short, Creative Juice, kind of where we're trending towards is, yes, we have, the services that you can get. It's like, yes, I can make you a video and in return you give me money. But we want to build out like almost the streaming media outlet side of the business, that we can obtain. And, we want to be in the world of sports documentaries and short form stories and all this stuff so that, one day if, let's say, Pete Alonso, them and the Mets go on and win the World Series this year. And if somebody wants to buy this piece of media, that media lives on forever.
Yeah.
We get paid for it forever or however long it's on a streaming platform. It's something that can, sit in the background and make money.
Yeah.
And also 6 stories.
Yeah.
And so that's where Kyle and I want to be, is kind of diving into that media department. But how Pete Alonso came up was we were looking to start this original content series called the Elite Series, of just diving into elite athletes, and really how they got to where they are, and how they're doing it. And so we reached out to a couple different training facilities who housed, pro athletes and whatnot, and basically just kind of like on a pro bono notice, like, we'll do this for free. You can have credit to it. We'll put you as a presenting sponsor. We don't ask for any money in exchange. We just want to be able to post it on, YouTube.
Yeah.
And then if somebody wants to buy it in the future, we can talk about a contract. So very beneficial for both parties. We found diesel optimization. They were super in on it, asking so many great questions, and they were very interested in it. And they have Pete Alonso, Tyler Glasnow, Harrison Bader. They trained Juan Soto and Aaron Judge at one point in time, I believe.
It's a decent roster.
Just decent roster. A lot of other great guys as well that I'm just blanking on, but they literally have a whole all-star roster. But anyways, they were very interested in what we were having to offer, and just kind of creating a mutual beneficial relationship. And so it made sense. The sucky thing was Kyle and I had this vision and decided to do it 2 or 3 weeks before spring training ended. And so all the guys were on a time crunch. Pete wasn't even signed to a team yet. All these guys were just trying to get ready for the big leagues. And so we managed to grab Pete Alonso and Harrison Bader. Those are the first 2 episodes that will be coming out. We did shoot with Jose Barrios. He's the ace for the Blue Jays, but we didn't get to do the interviews because he shipped out early. So just things like that. But Pete Alonso was the first episode. It dropped yesterday. And then what the future looks like, at least for this Elite Series, is we'll be covering not only MLB athletes, but hopefully some of the clients that we now have, like Max Clark, Peyton Stearns, tennis player.
I need a Baker one so bad.
Baker is going to be hard to get. Baker's going to be hard to get.
I need it.
But just some of our already existing clientele to try to like hop on this media train with us. And I think they'll be more than willing to, just off the relationships that we have with them. But that's something we're really interested in. We want to start making 30 for 30s. We want to make the best sports documentaries in the world, The Last Dances, MJ. Like, we want to have documentaries that are remembered and, you know, liked by everybody.
Fire me up, bro.
Yeah.
Fired up.
I'm excited.
And I'm just happy for you because you're just so passionate about something. And there's just something about doing something every day that you're passionate about. And I'm happy for you that you found it. And I think, you know, I think one day we'll be scrolling Netflix and there'll be a documentary that has your name on it, and that'll be a pretty cool day.
Yeah. Hopefully Creative Juice will be coming to y'all screens pretty soon. That would be pretty sick.
So where can they find the documentary, and then where can they find what you've been doing?
Yeah. So on my personal page, Bloomberg Film, that's on Instagram, YouTube. That's pretty much where, you know, I post a lot of the athletes, and that's also the biggest page that we have. And then something that we're growing, obviously the business, Creative Juice Agency on Instagram, on YouTube. And then the YouTube channel where you can find the first episode of the Elite series is called the Creative Juice Agency on YouTube. And so if you want to check out the first episode of Pete Alonso, if you're a Mets fan or a baseball fan, that's the place to be right now. So,
well, Nathan, appreciate you coming on. You've been someone who, you know, just a great friend in general, but also with this side project that I've been taking on, just someone who, you know, a great ear to listen and give me feedback. And I just always appreciate your positivity and having my back in that. So again, I think Creative Juice to the moon, and big things to come, but thanks for coming on.
yeah, appreciate it, really.
And that's going to do it for Nathan Blumberg. Nathan is a great friend. Like I said, he's been someone through this process I've always been, you know, bouncing questions off of, whether it's video, audio, how do I do this? How do I do that? He's always got an answer for me. And so I'm just so appreciative of him in that space. And yeah, it was just a super cool conversation, you know, especially being vulnerable enough to, you know, talk about the passing of his father. And that's something that I wasn't going to bring up because, you know, that's a very tough thing that happened to him, and he was vulnerable enough to bring it up in this conversation. And I think things like that, being vulnerable, could really help some people. And so if you're dealing with loss, I hope that what he had to say and kind of how he, you know, grew from it and how he looks at it now. But that's going to do it for this episode. Hopefully there was something that you could take away from it, whether you're looking to start your own business yourself, whether you're interested in sports videography or how to become a better networker. Hopefully something stood out to you in this episode and you can apply it to your life. Make sure you're liked, subscribe, stay tuned for next Wednesday when we have our 5th episode coming out of Johnny Talks. Thanks again for all your support. And until then, peace.